Hello? Hi? How are you guys doing? You have a good weekend? Are you ready for some spooksies? Hmm? Tell me if the BGM music is too loud at any point. I'll try to make it just barely noticeable. Mhm. Hello. Hi. Hello, Critter. Hello, Laser. Hello, Sai. Hello, Gibbs. Hello, V. Hello, Jordan. Hi, Asta. Well, how are you? Are you guys ready for some? You don't hear music? It's like barely noticeable. Is this better like this? It's not exactly music, it's more like ambience. I'll make it slightly louder then. Here you go. Here you go. It's just a very, very slight sound, just to have background noise, because, you know, the scariest thing of them all is, to not be able to, hear stuff. The scariest thing of them all is the silence. It's when the voices stop talking. That's the scariest thing. Today's gonna be, I guess, a little bit, unconventional ASMR. I'm not necessarily gonna be whispering all the time. This is just gonna be me reading you spooky time stories, trying my best to act them out. While I read them, I might be a little bit less interactive with chat during that time, so we can stay in the atmosphere of the story. And yeah, I think that's it. How spooky are we talking today? We're talking normal spooks, not cry out of fear spooks. We're talking wow. I wouldn't want that to happen to me, bruv. I wouldn't want that to happen to me, bruv. Cause I remember last time we did this, we did pick a story that had like some really weird shit going on. So I tried to be very careful with what I pick today. But yeah, let me get a sip of water and then my good little spooky storybook. They're actually from Reddit, but don't tell anyone. Little spooky scary book, and I'll be don't read Lovecraft because reasons. Yeah. I'm not even sure. Is Lovecraft's stuff in the public domain yet? Because I only read either free to read stories from online or public domain shit. Yeah. I don't know how long something has to be out to be in the public domain. King in Yellow is a family-friendly spooky story. I feel like you guys are lying to me. But yeah. So I'm gonna be trying my best. I hope you have stuff to be cozy. It's gonna be just imagine it's your mom reading you bedtime stories or something. But they're scary-ish. 80 years since the other's death. Let's see. Cause yeah, Disney changed stuff. So I don't know about Lovecraft. I'm not really good with remembering dates, so. Hi, Franklin. Hello. No need to apologize. You're just on time. We haven't started. So as I was saying, and if I can get a mod to, tell chat once in a while, remind chat, I will be a little bit less interactive while reading each individual story. Here, I'm moving my phone away. Here we go. Here we go. Perfect. Okay. I'm just getting a nice little book ruffle first. Just smell those pages. Here we go. Let's start. I have a few stories I picked out for you guys. We're gonna start with a short one, so we can, ease into it. Okay. So, this story is called I Have a Set of Rules, but They're Not Working. This entire situation is so outlandish that I don't know what to do. I'm not very tech savvy, but I've been in this community for a while, and maybe some of you guys can give me advice or point me to somewhere more appropriate. Anyway, I'm in my early 20s, just graduated and moved into a new apartment a month ago. The landlord is a little eccentric, but he's nice enough, and the room was amazing with how cheap it was. As soon as I moved there, my landlord, Mr. Chance, handed me a folded up paper and told me never to break those rules. I unfolded the paper to find only 3 rules on it. Rule number 1. Do not open your front door between 3 to 4 a.m. Rule number 2. Do not bring candles onto the premises. Rule number 3. Do not use the kitchen tap after sundown. They were peculiar rules, but fine enough since I didn't do those things anyway. I just filled up my water bottle before the sunset and I was good. Anyway, I've read a lot of stories like this about experiencing this stuff, and I think that's what my landlord was doing. He was trying to protect tenants from some sort of supernatural entity. I've encountered all the common things one does with these entities. One day, I woke up at almost 3:30 in the morning and I heard knocking on my door. I got up to investigate it and then the sound suddenly stopped. I looked through the little peephole in the door to see if someone was looking for me, and the knocking started up again, but louder. It felt like someone was throwing themselves against the door. I was freaked out, but I remembered the rules and just went back to bed. Another time, I went to put my dirty dishes in the sink at around midnight, and I found some red liquid dripping from the tap. It looked like blood, but I didn't get close enough to see if it smelled coppery. Again, I remembered the rule and decided to just stay away from the sink until morning. The sink was clean when I woke up. I turned the water on and it was as clear as ever. The weird thing is that after a few weeks of living there, more things started happening. Suddenly, doors I remembered shutting were open. Food in my fridge was gone, and there were only crumbs in its place. Even my lights started shutting off on their own. These didn't have anything to do with Chance's rules, but I figured I'd still be fine since I followed them. It wasn't until my bedroom door slammed itself shut for the third time that I realized this entity wasn't so harmless. I was just watching YouTube in my room when it slammed shut. It had been doing it all day, so I was getting increasingly annoyed. I stood up and stomped the door, ready to throw it open. As soon as I grabbed the handle, I yelped back in pain. The handle was hot, just like a stove. I'd never been hurt by anything in the apartment before, so I'll admit that it did startle me. I wrapped my shirt around the handle, shoved it open, and ran out of my apartment with my tail between my legs. "Well," Jen said, contemplating my retelling of the above events, "I told you not to break the rules." "But I didn't," I told him, a bit louder than I intended. "I followed these rules for 20 years. None of this has happened to anyone who hasn't broken them." "I followed the rules exactly," I said, exasperated with him. He would never believe me, no matter how convincing I tried to be. He just remained silent while waiting for me to stop bothering him. "Then what does someone do if they broke them?" The old man looked at me, stroking his beard in thought, before he finally responded. "Keep following the rules." I asked for more, but he didn't budge. He motioned for me to leave and started closing the door in my face. He seemed so nonplussed about the situation. I just decided to do what he said to. I kept following the rules for a while, but it kept getting worse. There wasn't a day I didn't have a cut or bruise on me from my apartment. One day, the knife rack would fall over right onto my hand. The next day, my perfectly fine chair would break while I was sitting on it. It's been a few weeks since these attacks started getting worse. I know I should have moved out, but I think I waited too long. 3 days ago, I felt something watching me as I tried to sleep. 2 days ago, I noticed something standing in the corner of my room. The lights were off, but I saw its eyes, shining in the moonlight. It was a darkness looming over me, looking at me as it thought I was sound asleep. The worst part is yesterday, because I swear I saw it standing closer to my bed. This thing was in the middle between me and the wall, like it was taking its time to creep up on me. It's getting late, but this thing will get me if I don't do something. I just know it. I feel like a helpless prey caught in its trap. What do you do when the rules stop working? I just looked into my bedroom and I swear I saw something glinting in the corner. I really don't want to go to bed tonight. And that's where it ends. I don't know, do you guys think he survived? Do you guys think he survived? What do you guys think is happening there? I'm kind of curious. It doesn't have a follow-up yet. It's like kind of a cliffhanger, I guess. I guess it's a little bit of a cliffhanger. Because of any idea. If I had to guess, they gone. They met their fate. Hi Donna, how you doing? If I had to guess, my personal guess, going off of what's written there, is that there was someone else in the house that wasn't following the rules. You know how sometimes you'll hear these stories about people who were living with someone in their basement and they didn't know about it. You know, stuff like that. That could be you. You should check your basement if you have one. I'm just saying. What if they end up pissing an entity and you don't know, huh? He died, yeah. I think he's dead. Don't think we're getting an update on that. I'm doing well, thank you. I'm glad to hear that you're doing better than the protagonist here. Yeah, I think you guys are right. I think the pass to the other side. Good thing I'm in a dorm, I can see everything inside. Can you? Can you really? I remember that thing that terrified me when someone told me when I was younger is that when you have the lights on in a room and it's dark outside, it's kind of like hard for you to be able to see outside unless you like really look to be able to see if there's someone outside. But if there is someone outside, they can see you perfectly. Hi, Dior. Hello. Buenos duawawawawas. Hello. We're reading spooky, scary stories today. Yes. Just finished one. As a reminder for the people who joined just now, when I'm reading the stories, I will be a little bit less responsive to chat because I want to make sure we can stay in the atmosphere. So some of the stories are a little bit longer. So this one was like I think that's the shortest one I have. Now, shall we look onto another chapter of the spooky Halloween storybook? You guys, aside from me, do you guys have a dog? Do you happen to perhaps have a dog? A lot of people think that having a dog is safer than having a cat. 'Cause you know, dogs are very loyal, right? They wouldn't, they wouldn't like just leave you to fend for yourselves. Dogs are very loyal. They're really good at guarding your place. Aren't they? They're so good at guarding your place. Anyway, I have a story about a dog here. Sure, we got a dog, it's on the screen. Aww. I'm not sure you should trust me for guard duty. Anyway, let's read the next story. So this one is called My dog Bella. My dog Bella is a white toy poodle. She's about 8 years old, weighs 9 pounds, and is 10 inches tall. She's also incredibly smart. I searched it up, and apparently poodles, including toy poodles, are one of the most intelligent dog breeds out there. That makes sense, but I feel like Bella is smarter than other toy poodles. This isn't like how all dog owners say that their dog is the best. I genuinely do believe that Bella is smarter than other dogs. Not only is Bella remarkably well trained and follows every order, but she's also extremely self-aware, and I've never seen it in a dog before. One time, I found my husband, Ben, trying to put a bandana on Bella, saying that it'll look cute on her. Bella turned to look at me when I walked into the room. She clearly didn't want to wear the bandana, but she let Ben put it on her anyway. Once Ben finished and stood up, Bella hurried away into another room. Thank you, monkey. Doesn't she look adorable? My husband said with a smile before turning to look at me. You too, honey. I shook my head and went after Bella to go and, get the bandana off of her. But there was no need. When I turned the corner into the downstairs bedroom, I saw Bella pulling and pulling the bandana off her neck. Most dogs do this whenever their owner puts something on them. The strange thing was how Bella was doing it. She was looking directly into the full-length mirror attached to the closed door. She was using it to try to see how she could get the bandana off of her. When Bella saw me in the mirror, her head popped up, and she turned around and trotted up to me happily, her tail wagging and a bandana in her mouth. That was the first time I had ever seen a dog not only recognizing their own reflection, but also using it to take something off of them. Bella even knew that my reflection behind her meant that I was actually behind her. I was beyond impressed, and I told Ben about it over dinner, but he didn't believe me. It was probably just a coincidence that she was looking at the mirror while taking the thing off, he replied nonchalantly, before picking up another pile of pasta with his fork. And Bella probably knew that you were behind her because she either heard or smelt you coming. He took a quick drink of water from his glass before turning to me. Not saying you smell bad. While Ben laughed at his own joke, I sat there annoyed. I then turned to look at the floor, where Bella was sitting, looking up at me. She could sense how I was feeling. I always felt that Bella could understand us. Becky, I'm sorry, what's wrong? Spoke Ben in a more serious voice, putting his hand on my shoulder. It's fine, it's just... Bella can always understand us, I just wish we could understand her, I mumbled softly, still looking at Bella. I got an idea, Ben spoke out, interrupting my train of thoughts. I turned myself back towards Ben, who was scrolling through his phone on some website. What is it? I asked, confused. Ben turned his phone towards me, and I could see a picture of what looked like a mat, covered in different colored buttons. There was a dog in the picture. The bright pup, Ben grinned, before looking back down to his phone and reading what it said aloud. Have you ever wanted to be able to understand what your dog might be thinking? Well, now you can. Introducing the Bright Pup, a communication pad with different buttons for different things. Using the button's unique recording abilities, you can set each one to play a different voice line when pushed. Some words that we would suggest include bathroom, walk, and food, but it's all up to you. With enough training, you'll be able to understand the needs of your furry friend. Remember, buy the Bright Pup today and give your dog a say. After he finished reading, Ben handed the phone to me. Well, what do you think? Ben asked, with hope in his voice. I've seen these kind of pads before, and they do work from what I've heard. And the reviews were good, so I decided, let's get it. A week later, a large box ended up right on our front step. We knew what it was. After bringing it inside, Ben and I opened it up, with the help of Bella, of course. We set it up in the living room, off to the side where we wouldn't trip on it. It certainly isn't the prettiest thing in the room, but it'll fit, stated Ben. It took us around an hour of figuring out how to record the specific lines for each button, but eventually it was ready for use. We began training Bella by getting her to press a button and giving her a treat whenever she wanted to do something specific. She learned quite fast. Almost immediately, Bella started pressing the buttons to tell us when she needed to go outside. It was a little weird hearing my own voice occasionally coming from the living room saying, "Potty," but it was an improvement from the quiet scratches Bella would make at the front door before we got the Bright Pup. With more training, Bella was eventually able to form small sentences. One time I could hear my voice speaking in clips from the other room. Bella, hungry. Mom, food. It was truly amazing watching Bella communicate with us in this way, especially with how fast she learned how to do so. It was also funny seeing Ben's shocked face as he watched Bella continuously pressing one button after another. Play, Dad, Bella, fetched, beeped the Bright Pup. I was glad that Ben could finally see Bella's intelligence for himself, and that I could finally understand Bella. One night, a few weeks after we had gotten the Bright Pup, Ben told me he was going to take a night walk around the neighborhood. I told him to stay safe, to which he responded with a smile. I will. I settled down on the couch in the living room exhausted. I looked over to Bella, who was curled up in her dog bed next to the button pad. Ever since we got the Bright Pup, Bella would almost never leave it alone. She would constantly press the buttons speaking to us. Sometimes it was about food, walks, or playing, but oftentimes it was just random words that we couldn't understand. Either way, it had started to get annoying. Ben began to take long night walks as a way to finally have some kind of silence. It was only ever quiet in the house when Bella was sleeping. I decided to turn on the television and began to scroll through the channels. One of them was playing a movie. It was already halfway over, but I just wanted to watch something to clear my head. From what I pieced together, the movie was about a dog that helped improve the lives of those around her. At At some point during the movie, I noticed that Bella was now awake and looking attentively at the screen. She wasn't barking or anything, just staring. I assumed that she probably knew that there wasn't actually another dog in the living room. Nevertheless, she still seemed mesmerized, and we watched the whole thing through. The movie had a rather sad ending, where the dog in the movie passed away from old age and the effects were felt by those whom she helped earlier in the story. When the screen faded to black and the white text of the credits began to roll, I turned off the TV, stood up from the couch, and stretched. I was too tired to wait for Ben to come back, so I figured that I would just go to bed. I slowly walked towards the steps that led upstairs. When I stopped, I felt something, or someone, staring at me. I turned around and there was Bella, now standing up in her bed and looking directly at me, her black eyes piercing mine. "What's wrong, Bella?" I asked. She didn't move. "Do you need to go outside? Do you need more food? Do you want to play?" "Nothing." Shrugging it off, I turned around and began to walk away again when I heard the bright pup speak. "Mom." I sighed, getting slightly annoyed, and turned around again, walked over to Bella, and crashed down on the floor in front of her. "Yes, Bella, what is it?" I questioned, exasperated. Bella's eyes darted around, looking at all of the buttons that were lying before her. Slowly but surely, she lifted her paw and began to push the buttons on the pad. "When dog gone, where'd dog go?" "What?" I asked, slightly confused. "Where'd dog gone when dogs sleep?" "Dreamland?" I replied, still unsure what she meant. I then laughed to myself and was about to get up and walk away. "No," replied Bella with a stump of her paw. "When Mom gone, when Dad gone, when Bella gone. No gone sleep, gone no see, gone no eat, gone, gone, where go?" That was when I pieced two and two together and felt a wave of dread come over me. How did Bella know about that? I knew she was smart, but this was something entirely else. "I don't know," I replied. That was the truth. I'd never been religious, but I wasn't an atheist either. I have always pushed the thought about what happens after death aside and forget about it. After all, I should focus on the now, right? No point in worrying about something that will happen regardless, right? I was beginning to feel creeped out. Bella didn't seem satisfied with this answer. She let out a soft whimper and began to furiously pull at the board. "No. Bella, no won't go. Bella, no won't Mom gone. No go. No, no, No. I slowly got up and backed away as Bella continued to press the same button. As I walked upstairs, I could still hear the sounds of my recorded voice, repeatedly saying no, coming from behind me. Even in bed, I could still hear it from downstairs. No. 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 In the morning, I suggested to Ben that we return the bright pup. He immediately agreed, admitting that the constant noise was driving him crazy, and he would be glad to not hear it again. I never told him about what had happened the previous night, and I never planned to. We tried to go online to the website we bought the pet from, but for some reason it was gone. I still don't know why we couldn't find it. It doesn't matter, said Ben smoothly. We can still sell it online. So we did that and put up an ad for the bright pup. We hadn't gotten any offers yet, but it was only the first day. The bright pup was put into the closet so Bella couldn't make any more noise with it. She wasn't happy with that and she showed it. She was always so well behaved before, but now she seemed so different. Bella would refuse to listen to us. She would stop wanting to play or go outside, and she would start barking whenever Ben tried to put the bandana on her. One time she even growled and snapped. I was worried that something was seriously wrong. Ben didn't think there was anything to stress about. She's just a tiny dog. Well, it couldn't do any harm to us even if she really wanted to, he chuckled. Bella would also start treating me differently as well. She'd stare at me whenever I was in the room, even if I wasn't looking at her. I know I shouldn't have been that scared of my own dog, especially a little one at that, but I couldn't help it. It always reminds me of that night, where she asked me what happens after we die. Maybe the button she pressed didn't mean anything and I was giving meaning to something that had none. But it still did make me think about it. About death. We never should have gotten her that bright pup. But Bella was obsessed with it by now. There were a few times when we would catch her clawing at the closet door that we hid the bright pup in. Even though we had the ad up online for about a month by this point, we still weren't getting any offers. Maybe we should just throw the bright pup away, I whispered to Ben one night. Why are you whispering, Becky? Are you scared that the dog will hear us? Honey, you need to relax. Bella is smart, but she can't understand everything that we say, chuckled Ben. Besides, we paid good money for that thing. Why do you want to toss it? Well, you know, Bella's just been acting so weird since we got it. Maybe if we get rid of it, she'll act normal again. Ben laughed. You're still scared of the dog? He asked, pointing over to Bella. I nodded, and Ben sighed. Here, how about this? I can take her to the vet tomorrow morning so they can check her out. That way, we can know for sure if something is wrong. Does that sound good to you? Yeah, I guess, I mumbled as I turned to look at Bella, who was now staring intently at us. The next morning, I woke up to what sounded like a crashing noise. Normally, I would instantly wake up to see what was wrong, but it was so early in the morning, and I was exhausted. I groggily rolled over to wake Ben up, but he wasn't there. He must have gotten up already, I thought to myself. Slowly, I got out of bed, put on my slippers and bathrobe, and left the bedroom with a stretch, and a yawn. I could see the kitchen lights were on downstairs from the hallway. Ben wouldn't leave the lights on if he had left to take Bella to the vet already. I walked down the staircase and into the kitchen. It was empty. Ben? Are you alright? I called out to the empty home. Did something break? Ben? Are you there? No response. It was dead silent. Suddenly, a voice called out from our second downstairs level. Down here. Even though it was a recorded version of Ben's voice, I still recognized it as the bright pup. Did Ben take it out? I walked over to the staircase and saw that it was pitch black downstairs. I took out my phone and turned on the flashlight mode so I could see the steps below me. Oftentimes, Bella's dog toys would be left on the steps, which could be a tripping hazard. I managed to make it down safely and shine my flashlight around the dark room, looking for whoever activated the bright pup. I was beginning to feel a sense of dread. That was when my light finally shined onto the floor near the couch, illuminating Bella, who was sitting next to the bright pup. I sighed. Bella, who said you could have that? Did Dad give it to you? No, the Martian responded after Bella pushed down a button. She then pressed a few more buttons with her paws. Dad, gone. Gone where? I asked. Something didn't feel right. Down there. Bella then turned her head to look at something in the darkness. I pointed my phone's light into the direction that she looked, which was right in front of me. My heart dropped when I saw what Bella was looking at. Ben was lying face down on the floor in front of me and the stairs, unmoving. Oh my God, I screamed as I rushed over to him to see if he was alright. He wasn't. When he fell down the stairs, he must have hit his head on the TV stand, splitting it open. There was no point in checking his pulse. He was dead. I started crying and was about to call 911 for help when my phone's light fell on something else. That was near Ben's feet. It was a ball. Bella's toy ball. I slowly turned over to Bella, who was already looking right at me. She pressed 3 buttons. Dad. No more. And that's the end of the story. It stops there. See, told you that getting a dog isn't always safer. Well, not that you can get rid of me that easily, I will say. Listen, it's not because not, not as safe as you thought, that you shouldn't get one. Just, don't take away their stuff. I'm gonna take a sip of water. And then we're gonna go on to the last story of the day. OMG, hi Ricardo. How you doing? What's the worst you could do? Bite our ankles? Why? You wanna finish like Mr. Dad there? You wanna end up like him? Okay. So I have one last story I can read to you guys. Doing good, how are you? I'm doing good, thank you. I've been enjoying reading these to you guys. I'd like to see you drive down. Chaz, a death wish. Spooky, it's been just a tragedy. These people shouldn't have been allowed to have pets if they can't stand a conversation with a sentient dog. Exactly, that's exactly my point. You're gonna give the dog a way to talk and then take it back. I think it's normal that it takes revenge. Okay, I'm gonna get another sip of water. My throat is a little bit itchy. I think I've been catching a cold. Because it has been like that since this morning. Okay. You guys ready for the last story? Don't get sick, Rika. I'm trying my best, but Mama Hellhound is sick currently, so I'm trying my best not to catch it too. Okay. Last story for the day. Someone's been pounding on my neighbor's door in the middle of the night for the last few weeks. I should never have confronted them. I've lived in a small apartment complex for close to 10 years now. It's a small one-bedroom affair that, being built in the late 70s, is extremely old-fashioned in its decor. But the rent has always been decent. The landlord has always been accommodating when I have a problem, and for the most part, the neighbors have been quiet and haven't caused a fuss. Aside from the occasional homeless person dumpster diving for cans in the middle of the night, or the television piped slightly too loud from downstairs, it's always been rather easy for me to fall asleep. Until my new neighbor moved in a few weeks ago. At first, I didn't think anything negative would come with her. She was a friendly, if rather reclusive woman who appeared to be in her mid to late 30s. From what I picked up from our limited conversations when meeting in the mailboxes or gathering laundry, she was a recovering addict who'd successfully made a clean break from the life and had moved her to try and start over. As someone who has lost a few friends to addiction, I felt sympathetic and always was polite and friendly when we saw each other. And for the first few weeks of her living here, all was well. And then the banging began. I'd woken up at about 2 in the morning to have to use the bathroom, and was washing my hands when I heard it. Or I should say that I first felt it more than heard it. The vibration that came through the floor was enough to give me pause. What the hell? Drying my hands quickly, I pulled open the bathroom door and stepped out into the living room. A moment later it came again. But this time I heard it. Someone was at one of my neighbor's doors. And they weren't just knocking, they were actually pounding on it. I groaned softly at my first thought. Oh great, not the cops again. We just had them over a few weeks ago due to an altercation that a rather belligerent homeless woman had with my next door neighbor as they stood outside having a cigarette. But then the banging came again, and I realized something. Whoever was doing the banging wasn't saying a word. No yelling or orders typical of either police or simply an argument between a couple or something. The realization made me feel a little bit wary, and I eyed the closed blinds that covered the window that opened onto the second floor walkway. For a moment, I debated on sliding a finger through them, parting them enough to peek outside. But as I toyed with the notion, suddenly, the banging stopped. The world outside went silent, save for the barking of a dog somewhere a few blocks away. I stood there for another second, listening to see if I could hear the sound of footsteps, but it remained quiet. After a few seconds, I shrugged my shoulders and turned back to my bedroom. Whatever, I'll figure it out in the morning, I thought, as I closed my bedroom door and climbed back into bed. The next day, as I grabbed my mail, I saw my new neighbor, whose name I'd learned was Erin, enter the laundry room that also had doubled as our mailroom. We each said good morning to each other, and after exchanging pleasantries, I decided to ask her about the banging. "Oh no, you heard that?" she asked me, and a public look etching itself onto her face. I nodded. After a second's silence, she answered, her voice filled with an apologetic tone. "I am so sorry. That was one of my friends. He'd stolen by to drop off my laptop. I left it at his place when I was in the middle of moving." At 2 in the morning? I mentally wondered, but chose not to say it aloud. After all, I didn't want to appear to be rude. Instead, I just smiled at her. "Well, just in the future, let your friends know that things are supposed to be quiet here after 10. I just don't want to see you get in trouble." She nodded immediately, giving a smile of her own. "Of course. Thank you for giving me the heads up," she said, locking her mailbox and heading for the door. Thinking that was the end of it, I left the mailroom, got into my car, and went to work. The day passed by normally, and after stopping by the grocery store to buy a frozen pizza, I returned home and gorged myself on it while watching a marathon of classic horror movies. Shut the TV off around 11, dumped my dishes into the sink to do tomorrow, and after brushing my teeth, slipped into bed. It took about half an hour of getting comfortable, but eventually I fell into a deep and dreamless sleep. Bang, bang, bang. The sound ripped me out of the pleasant dream I'd been having, and my eyes snapped open. I glanced at my alarm clock. The red letters read 2:15 a.m. As I laid there, wondering whether the sound had come from my dreams or not, it came again. 3 rhythmic bangs, then a few seconds of silence before 3 more. My mind, still only half awake, slowly began turning. Then it suddenly clicked. I let out a groan. Ah, you've got to be freaking kidding me. I threw off the covers and slid out of bed. 2 nights in a row? I'd already had my doubts about Erin's story of a friend returning something. This was piling it on more. I opened my bedroom door and stepped out into the living room. The walkway lights glowed softly through the closed blinds, and I moved over to them. For another 30 seconds, I stood there in the dark, listening to the person pounding on the door. Then, exactly as before, the banging stopped. Silence fell, and this time, after a few seconds of contemplation, I pulled down one of the blinds and peered outside. I had a perfect view across the way to Erin's front door. The walkway lights revealing nobody. I angled the blinds up farther, looking down at the parking lot and the stretch of road visible. Not a soul was visible anywhere out there. How the hell did they get down to the ground and out of sight so quickly? The last knock came less than 15 seconds ago. For a moment, I thought about unlocking the door and sticking my head out, but pushed the thought away as a yawn escaped to my lips. I'd speak to Erin tomorrow if I saw her. For now, I needed to get some more sleep so I wouldn't go to work tired. I didn't see her the next day, or when I got home that night. As I unlocked my front door, I heard the door behind me open. Turning, I found myself staring at the tired eyes of David, my next-door neighbor. Have you been hearing someone banging away on someone's door the last 2 nights? He asked grumpily. I nodded, and he let out a sigh. Well, hopefully it doesn't happen again, because it's getting on my nerves, he said before slamming his door shut. Most of my neighbors will complain when something gets on their nerve, but if for whatever reason, whether it's that they don't want to be seen as a squeak or just to beat down from everyday life, they don't ever call management or confront the person causing problems. This was just another textbook case of that. Sorry, I had a burpee. As I pushed my door open, I shot a final look across at Erin's door. I'd given a moment's thought to knocking on her door, but decided against it and headed inside. I didn't know the woman after all, and I didn't know who was coming in the middle of the night either. And given the fact of her own life, it could be someone less than scrupulous banging away. The last thing I wanted to do was get involved with something that could end badly for me. I forced myself to forget it as I cooked dinner and played video games before hitting the hay. I prayed that I wouldn't be woken up again, but I was. This time, I flung the covers off of me and went straight to my front door, irritation bubbling up inside. Grabbing my jacket off the hook and sliding into my flip-flops, I unlocked the front door and reached for the handle. But something stopped me. I couldn't explain what it was, but it was the oddest sensation I've ever felt. It was as if something were incessantly telling me not to open the door, and it was enough to make me hesitate for a few seconds. Just like the last 2 nights, the banging suddenly stopped, forcing the warning away. I grasped the handle and turned it, yanking the door open. The chilly fall night washed over me as I blinked rapidly against the blinding porch light. Stepping outside, I turned and looked around the corner, expecting to see whoever had been wailing on the door to be making a break for the stairs. To my shock, I saw nobody. That's freaking impossible. The knocking stopped less than 5 seconds ago. Somebody wouldn't have been able to get downstairs and out of sight so quickly. Feeling thoroughly confused, I pulled the door shut behind me and stepped out onto the walkway. Glancing around, I still saw no one. I turned to look at Aaron's apartment. The blinds were drawn and I saw no light emanating from behind him. I scoffed. The woman can sleep through that racket? As I stood there, a feeling suddenly fell over me. Shiver shot up my spine, causing me to gasp aloud as the feeling of being watched from behind overtook me. And whoever was doing the staring was definitely not friendly. I realized with another shiver that had left my back open to the stair behind me. The perfect place for someone to sneak up on you. My heart began to thunder in my chest and my breathing came in short gasps as a wave of instinctive fear surged through me. Tightening every muscle in my body, I snapped my fist closed and spun around, ready to sock someone in the face. There was nobody behind me. The stairway was empty and dark, but I'd been sure that someone had been there. Trying to stay as quiet as possible to keep from waking up my neighbors, I descended the stairs, trimming the motion sensor light on them to flash on and bathe the area in harsh white light. Reaching the bottom, I looked first to the left, then the right. The empty street stretched away in both directions, the dark shapes of parked cars lit by the occasional yellowish-orange glow of the street lights. Nothing moved in the night. I heard a dog bark a few blocks away again, along with the sound of the generator from the boat building factory down by the river. I stared for a few more moments, then turned around and headed back upstairs, shaking my head. Come on, Alan, what are you doing, man? I mumbled quietly to myself as I reached my front door. Just be honest, stupid. You could have gotten hurt, and besides, it's none of your business. Whether it's an old druggy friend of hers or anything, just stay out of it. Just take a melatonin or sleep aid and stay out of it. Stepping inside and locking the door behind me, I vowed to not get up again for the banking. After all, it can't last too much longer, right? The thought didn't exactly reassure me, but I allowed my vow to help me relax as I slipped back into my bed. As I lay there, my mind thought back to the sensation I'd had while standing on the top of the walkway. It wasn't what I'd ever experienced before, and I didn't like it. The feeling of fear returned briefly, sending a small shiver down my spine, but I forced it away. After an unusually long stint of tossing and turning, I fell asleep. The next day, I went to Rite Aid and bought a bottle of melatonin, along with a bottle of more traditional sleeping pills. I'd never bought anything to help stay asleep before, never having trouble with sleep. Well, first time for everything, I thought, as Acacia rang me up. After work, I returned home and watched a movie before deciding to try and head to bed earlier than usual. I chewed one of the melatonin gummies before brushing my teeth and hoped against hope that the banging wouldn't come again. Or that the gummy would help me slip into a deep enough sleep that it wouldn't wake me up at least. I said a silent prayer as I got into bed that I would sleep through it. My prayers were not answered. I was woken up yet again at just after 2 by the banging. The irritation that filled me wanted to get up and confront the person before they stopped knocking and disappeared, but remembering my vow, I forced myself to stay in bed. After a few minutes, the banging stopped, and soon enough, I fell back asleep. It was not the last night it happened either. For a week, I tried taking the melatonin gummies, hoping that they hadn't worked due to not getting into my system enough. But they did exactly jack shit. I began to go to work more and more tired. My reflection in the mirror also began to show dark circles under my eyes from the lack of long, restful sleep. A few of my coworkers asked me if everything was alright, and I made up a story about an account stressing me out. My neighbors kept grumbling about the noise, but as always, they did nothing. I wouldn't stop speaking to anyone else in the complex as well. Instead, she dashed for her car or apartment whenever anyone spotted her, as if she didn't want to discuss what was going on. Finally, as the week ended, I decided to start taking the sleep aid. For the first week, they actually seemed to do the trick. I would fall asleep quickly and stay asleep. I began to feel better both physically and mentally, and my pace at work began to return to normal. I was able to put the situation out of my mind, and I even recommended the sleep aids to a few of my neighbors who ran out to buy them. Things finally began to settle down, and I felt sure that with a viable solution found, nothing could mess up the welcome change in pace. In hindsight, I hate how overconfident I became. How sure I was it would last. It didn't. I was woken up at the exact same time, this time feeling groggy from the sleeping pill. I lay there in the dark, hearing the banging, and couldn't help but let out a half-strangled cry as reality was jammed back into my face. Fuck, I hissed through gritted teeth. I hoped it had been just a one-time stumble, but it wasn't. Whether my body had built up a tolerance to the pills or whatever, I began to wake up to the banging on the same nightly basis as before. Again, I began to feel like crap, and my work and social life started to suffer as a result too. Friends, and even my boss, became concerned about me. I was called into his office one day. After asking what was going on, I ended up telling him about the situation. He grunted in response, thinking, "Well, Travers, if it's getting that bad and nobody is doing anything about it, why don't you move out?" He finally asked. "Why don't you find somewhere else? There are plenty of apartment buildings in town." I sighed, explaining to him that while they were opening around town, all of them were over 12,000 a month. My apartment complex was the last one in town where rent was under 1,000, and it was the only one I could afford. He sighed as well and looked at me. "I'm sorry that you seem to be stuck in a bit of a pickle, Travers, but I have to be honest. Your performance has dropped considerably from what it normally is, below even our lowest standards. You've been a loyal employee for years, but if it keeps up, we may have to reevaluate your employment with us." I felt my jaw drop open, disbelief flooding every fiber of my being. "Are you serious?" I managed out. He nodded, a stern look on his face. "I sympathize with your unfortunate scenario, Travers, but the unfortunate truth is We have to look at the grand scheme of things. This company needs to always function as it is expected, with pace and vigor. And if people can't keep up for whatever reason, then he trailed off. I wanted to say more, but I was dumbstruck. I'd worked here for 8 years, almost the entire time I'd lived in town. Never before had the prospect of being fired ever hit me. Not able to say anything else, I simply nodded and left the office. Hi, Graham, by the way. I spent the rest of the day keeping to myself, feeling as though my world was staring straight into the side of a cliff, and unable to steer away. As I slunk up the stairs to my apartment, I cast a look at Aaron's apartment. As usual, the blinds were drawn and there was no sign of life at all. A sharp feeling tore through me, and I was surprised to find it was bitterness, then anger, an emotion I wasn't used to. It was directed at Aaron for not calling the cops or doing anything to stop the banging, and my neighbors for being too apathetic to step in themselves, and most of all at myself. I slammed the front door behind me harder than I usually did and chose to order a pizza and breadstick from Domino's. As I had the next few days off, I decided to get wasted. So I grabbed 2 large bottles of margarita from the fridge, and after my food arrived, began downing them as I binge-watched a marathon of the Mummy movies. The alcohol made me feel a tiny bit better, and at 12:30 in the morning, I stumbled into my room and fell on the bed, instantly falling asleep. Bang, bang, bang. I blinked groggily as the waking world swam into view around me. The world almost immediately began spinning, showing that the alcohol hadn't left my systems yet. Then my temples throbbed slightly. I rolled over, wiping drool off my chin as I attempted to fall back asleep. Bang, bang, bang. The pounding came again, hard enough that I could feel the vibrations running up the feet of the bed into the mattress. I rolled onto my back and stared at the spinning ceiling, trying to fight back the urge to vomit. As the pounding in my head began to stink up with the incessant sound, a new feeling began to wash over me. Anger. And not just anger, but an almost full-blown rage. This hacker is going to cost me my job. He may end up costing me my apartment, along with my damn sanity. All because the hacking woman who won't answer the damn door. The thoughts swam around and around in my head, and for the first time in my life I began to see red. It finally boiled over as I stumbled to my feet, moving to the closet. I grabbed an aluminum baseball bat and strode to the front door. Far back in my mind, I knew that confronting someone who could turn violent while drunk was, well, not a smart idea. But I'd had enough. I jammed my feet into my flip-flops as another round of banging came. I decided to quickly look through the blinds to see if they were still there. Slipping 2 fingers through them, I pulled them down enough to clearly see across the way. The porch light that lit up the doorways of Erin and her next-door neighbors had burned out, but even with the darkness that now shrouded the alcove, I could see the shape of someone standing directly in front of her door. Someone who was almost as tall as the door itself. As I watched, they reached up and slammed their fist onto the door 3 times. Bang, bang, bang. Oh, fuck this shit, man, I growled, then moved to the front door. The drunken rage now fueling me, I unlocked the door and yanked it open, almost falling on my ass by how hard I pulled it. Storming out onto the walkway, I turned and saw the figure still there. "You're not disappearing from me this time." I took in a deep breath, then let out a yell, my words slurring slightly. "Hey, you asshole!" The figure had been in the middle of raising its arm to hit the door again when I'd spoken, and it froze, as though they hadn't planned on being caught. I took another step forward. "I've had enough of you pounding on that door for almost a month. I'm losing sleep, and you're pissing off everybody in this complex." Holding the baseball bat in one hand, I extended out and rapped it hard against the wooden railing before finishing my tirade. "If you don't beat it right now and don't come back, I'll personally beat the freaking shit out of you." Breathing heavily, I stood there, waiting for the person to respond, but they just stayed there. Their arm raced to hit the door again. My rage began to boil over again when the sound of something rapping softly against the glass came. I kept my eyes trained on the still figure for another moment before looking away to find the source of it. My gaze fell upon Erin's living room window, which no longer had the blinds closed. It had been yanked all the way open, and Erin now stood directly behind the glass. For a moment, my anger kept me from properly seeing what she was doing, and I was about to flip her the bird when my vision focused. Erin was frantically waving at me. She crossed her arms over and over while shaking her head, the universal sign for "don't do that." I was about to dismiss her, thinking she was trying to get me to put out, when the expression on her face became clear, and in that instant, all my rage died. Her face was white as a sheet, and her eyes were as wide as a human could go, the horror clearly etched on it. She looks like someone who... My blood turned to ice. She looks like someone who's about to watch someone get murdered. Oh shit. The realization wasn't the only one I had. Erin's eyes were no longer the only one on me. The figure had turned away from the door to glare at me as well, and my heart almost stopped as I saw two red eyes staring out at me. I let out a giant gasp and dropped the bat at the same fear I'd felt that night a few weeks ago flooded back into me, this time with a vengeance. Through my shock and horror, a thought wormed its way forward. That's not a person. That's not a human. Oh, fuck me, I breathed out, my voice choking off. It hadn't been loud enough for anyone that far away to hear them, and somehow the damn thing chuckled at them. The chortle was loud and deep, and the only way I can describe it was demonic. Another flash of movement came from Erin's window, and my eyes flickered over to her. She was frantically waving for me to go back inside. That's when the walkway lights went out. Oh shit. Propelled by the surge of fear, I instantly bolted from my open door. A new wave passed through me as I saw a blur of movement separating itself from the shred of blackness, one which moved faster than any human could. Letting out a strangled cry, I grabbed the door and began to slam it shut, but something crashed into it from the other side before I could. It would have flown backwards over my couch if I hadn't had the vice-like grip on the handle. Frantically, I pushed against the door with all my strength. The door closed a bit, and I felt a momentary sense of relief, until something snaked its way around the side of the door, between the crack that opened to the outside world. It was a fucking claw, a grey hand tipped at the end with black, razor-sharp nails, ones that dug into the metal like it was butter. The sight sent a surge of adrenaline through me, and I let out another strangled scream, slamming all my weight into the door. I felt the impact as it banged hard against the claw, the only thing keeping it open. The creature on the other side then let out a sound, but the claw quickly pulled away. It didn't waste another second. I slammed the door all the way shut, forcing the deadbolt into position along with the doorknob lock. Silence immediately fell over the complex, and I stood there, leaning against the door for support, as I fought to draw in breath. Bang, bang, bang. The pounding came from directly on the other side of the door, powerful enough that it retold on its hinges. Letting out a shout, I stumbled away from the door, crashing into the back of the couch and crashing to the floor. The 3 bangs came again with the same ferocity as the first. I began to cry, pulling my knees up against my chest as I curled into a ball on the floor. I thought for sure that it would smash against the door hard enough to break it down, but it kept banging for what seemed like an eternity. I lay down on the floor, frozen in terror, and unable to do anything but cry as my mind seemed to fracture slightly. The image of those red eyes staring at me repeatedly, endlessly, in my mind. And then it stopped. The pounding stopped, directly in the middle of one of the 3 sets, and was replaced by silence. A silence that now held far more dread than I ever thought it could have. Still I lay there, unable to move. I didn't move at all, even as hours seemed to pass. I'm not sure whether my mind became overwhelmed by the fear or the alcohol still latent in my system, but somehow I passed out. When I awoke, the sun glowed brightly against the blinds and I heard birds singing outside. Uncurling myself, I slowly got to my feet and approached the window. Reaching out with shaking fingers, I gripped the handle and forced myself to twist it. The light was almost blinding as the blinds opened, and I blinked a few times to adjust. When I did though, I saw that everything outside looked normal. It was as if the entire horrific night had been nothing but a drunken nightmare, and for a moment I almost convinced myself it was. Until I looked at the door and saw the deep marks in the metal. They reminded me that it had been very real. I was suddenly overcome with an almost desperate desire to get out of the apartment, to get as far away as I could. And so I raced to my room, grabbing a shirt and pants and jamming myself into them. I grabbed my car keys off the hook and yanked open the door, allowing more sunlight to stream inside. There was a sealed envelope lying on the entrance mat. It simply had my name written on the front and nothing else. I swallowed hard, then looked around. Everything still looked normal. I looked over at Erin's apartment. The blinds were closed tightly again and the door firmly shut. Taking a shaky breath, I picked up the envelope, then shut the door behind me and half walked, half ran down the steps to my car. After locking the doors, I finally opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of white paper, which someone had written on it with shaky scrawls. It's been almost a month since I read that letter in the parking lot. Almost a month since I read the words that have haunted every waking moment. I drove off, hoping that they were wrong. I drove to the next country, choosing to stay in a rundown motel for the night, and I prayed that the letter was wrong or a lie. I desperately prayed and begged. But when the pounding began at exactly 2 a.m., the same 3 raps for almost 10 minutes, I knew the words Erin had written were true. Owen, I'm so sorry for this. I didn't want anyone else to be caught up in this. I moved here because people told me the neighbors don't deal with other people's drama, and I thought that meant it would be safe. That people around me would be safe. You see, a few months ago, I broke up with my ex, who had enabled my drug addiction. It was the only way I could break the addiction cycle, but I didn't know she was into the occult. I got a call from her telling me that she'd cursed me, summoning a demon especially for me, to torment me in revenge for leaving her. She laughed and wished me to suffer thoroughly before I died a painful death. I thought she was full of shit at first, that she was threatening me into coming back to her. Until the knocking began. The same 3 pounding knocks every night at 2 in the morning for 10 to 20 minutes. Loud enough that it sounded like the door would burst in, but never doing so. And when I looked out the people and saw it staring at me, staring with those red eyes, those wicked teeth smiling, and those cruel claws flashing on its ends, I knew she'd told the truth. The reason I moved to your complex is that through some searching of a cult book, I discovered the demon she'd cursed on me will, for the rest of your life, knock on your door. It can't enter a person's home by force, but it can drive you insane with its knocking, and it takes great pleasure in the suffering it inflicts through that. Its ultimate goal is to break the person down enough that they end up willingly opening the door to it while it's on the other side. And then it takes you. You'll never be seen again, you'll be tortured for eternity. The worst part is there is a single way to break the curse on you. The only way is by having someone else, someone innocent, see the demon as it knocks on your door. Then the curse is passed along to that person and lifted from you. You basically have to sacrifice someone else in order to free yourself. It's something I was never able to do. I couldn't willingly have someone suffer such a horrifying fate, even to save myself. I would have gone on forever dealing with it, or eventually just open the door and let it take me, but that choice is now gone. You saw it. It locked onto you. And now the curse has been passed to you. It will follow you wherever you go, no matter how far. It will get behind any door, and it will knock. It will break you down. I'm now free, but at a cost I never wanted to make. I'm sorry, I won't be around much longer. I can't stand to see it happen to you. Please, forgive me. I went back to my apartment the next day. There was no point in running. Not when it would follow me. Erin moved out the day after I came back. I watched her pack her thing into a U-Haul, watch her get in, and with a last sorrowful look up at my window, drive away. I couldn't bring myself to walk outside and say anything to her. Every night since, it's pounding on my door. Every day I feel more and more tired, more worn down. I feel like I'm slowly going insane. Barely managed to make it to work, and yesterday it finally happened. My boss called me into his office and fired me. I only have a few months left of savings before I can't pay rent anymore. I don't know what'll happen when that day comes. It's not the worst part though. Erin's letter still reverberates around inside my head. The words about how to pass the curse along. I wouldn't wish this fate upon my worst enemy. I'd never want to hurt someone else. But I'm not as strong as Aaron. I don't want to be tortured forever. I don't know how much longer I can take this. How much longer until I break? How much longer until I lure someone else into seeing it? And that's the end of the story. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. So, you heard any banging on your door recently or on someone else's door recently? You know what to do now. Just don't look. No lookies. Just ignore. Yeah, that's right. Something weird happens. Don't be a horror movie protagonist. Just ignore it. That was an especially interesting story. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I found it interesting too when I checked it out earlier. Yeah, because I proofread everything. And yeah. So, just make sure to not be a horror movie protagonist and ignore the weird shit happening. That's the best way to survive. I hope you guys enjoyed that story. That was the last one for today. I'm not gonna talk for too long after this, so you guys can actually like get some rest if you're like relaxing or whatever. And before I leave, I will just say though that I will see you guys again on Monday and Tuesday for the Halloween events on Twitch. However, after that, I will be taking a small break for the rest of the week. So we won't have any other streams than those two. Yes. So you know. If you wanna stay updated on everything, I advise you to join the Discord 100%. Yeah, that's all. That's where I'm gonna leave it at. You can find the Discord in the description. Can take the story seriously, and it was goofy. That's completely fair. That's fair. I liked it. I personally liked the story. Thank you for the coffee. I hope you enjoy your break. Thank you. Well, though, I forgot what I was about to say, but thank you for watching me today. I hope you enjoyed the spooky stories, or like spooky is the right term. I didn't want to go with anything too hardcore for obvious YouTube reasons, but I hope you learned your life lesson. Don't betray your dog. Don't be a horror protagonist. And what was the first one? I forgot what was the first one I read. Whatever lesson we got out of that. Oh, yeah, don't let random people enter your home and break the rules. Check your basement. Oh, the background screen's up. No limit was loud in the beginning. I can't. I can't. It's a set thing. And since I'm not the one who made it, I cannot lower it. However, what I can do, which I usually do during ASMR and forgot to do today, is swapping the stinger. Which on Tuesday. Here you go. I did it like that. So you guys don't get anything. That's usually what I do and I forgot. Okay. I will let you guys relax for now. Thank you for coming. I appreciate you guys. Have a good rest of your time zone.